this is Callimara here, and no, it's not calamari. You've read the title, you've probably watched the announcement trailer yourself, so let's just dive right into it, shall we? I've been playing Pokemon all my life. It was one of the first games I ever played on my Game Boy Advanced, and I've owned every Nintendo console after that to play Pokemon. Except the Wii, because it was expensive, and Pokemon never released a game for the Wii, obviously. My first Pokemon game ever was technically Sapphire, but I got it from my older cousin who never taught me how to overwrite his save file, so I just never got very far because it would reset my progress every time I shut it off or every time it ran out of batteries. So my proper first Pokemon game was actually Diamond Pearl Platinum on the Nintendo DS, and since then I've been in love with the franchise. Now, in case you're new around here, you ought to know that I am Indonesian, and when it comes to representation, we basically get close to zero. I dare you to name one character from an English-speaking show or movie, produced by Hollywood or otherwise, who is explicitly stated to be Indonesian. Heck, I dare you to even name an Indonesian actor. I bet you can't. The point is, getting representation in mainstream media as an Indonesian is a distant pipe dream, and we usually have to make do with Thai or Filipino representation at best. So it was even more impossible of a dream back when I was like 8 years old in the early 2000s. But even so, I have always dreamed of a Pokemon game based in Indonesia, even as a child, the same way I've dreamed of an Indonesian Disney princess. And we got Raya instead, so let's just say I'm feeling a mix of trepidation and excitement over the fact that that pipe dream is now coming true. So while I am keeping a healthy dose of skepticism over how the end product will turn out, I do want to point out some things that were shown in the preview that makes me feel pretty optimistic that it might be decent representation at the very least, because I have no idea what kind of systems they'll be implementing in this region that will make it stand out from previous ones. So I'd also like to give my aspirations on what I think they should add to make it my dream Southeast Asian Pokemon game. And for this video, I'm going to organize it all into an easily digestible, numbered list. And hey, if you are Southeast Asian or Indonesian specifically, feel free to leave in the comments below what you'd hope to see in this game. Now, as an art YouTuber, I'm very fortunate to be able to do and talk about things I personally enjoy to earn money. I know not everyone has that luxury, but with today's sponsor Cash Giraffe, you too can earn some extra income doing what you enjoy. Cash Giraffe is a free gaming loyalty rewards app that lets you earn real money just for playing popular mobile games. No catches, just rewards for doing what you already love and do. No credit card, no payment info, nothing sketchy. They don't collect or share personal data. The only thing you need to allow is game progress tracking, and that's just so the app knows when you've leveled up. Once you're in, you just pick a game. There are a ton of popular free titles, and some of them even offer higher rewards than others. You play like normal, level up, and you automatically earn gems in the background. No extra steps, no watching ads, no weird hoops. I started a few tasks on Cash Giraffe myself, and you can see my progress right here. It took me a couple of weeks to earn this stack of gems you're seeing on screen, and I'm planning to redeem them for one of these gift cards soon. And you guys may not know this, but I am a huge fan of mobile gaming, and a lot of the games on Cash Giraffe are games I literally already have installed on my phone and have been playing for free the entire time when I could have been getting paid to play them. When you're ready to cash out, all they need is an email address to send your rewards. That's it. Plus, it's honestly a great way to discover new games while getting rewarded for time you were already gonna spend gaming anyway. So download Cash Giraffe today by clicking the link in the description or scanning one of the QR codes on the screen. And now let's get on with the video. Number 1. The opening sequence. Let's begin in chronological order. as the list goes on, you might have already seen those things talked about already on Twitter and other Western gaming websites, but I haven't really seen a lot of people talking about the opening shot alone because just from that, I got the immediate sense that this is Indonesia, and I'll tell you how. First things first, the entire room itself screams Javanese inspired to me. Javanese, not Japanese, okay guys? Java. What grabbed my attention first was actually the chair, and it immediately made me think this is something reminiscent of my homeland because here in maritime Southeast Asia, aka Mafilindo or Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia, we love our wood carvings. A lot of furniture in traditional houses will be made of wood with a lot of delicate, intricate carvings, and this particular chair with the red cushion immediately reminds me of teak wood dining chairs that every grandma used to have. And speaking of wooden accents, this slatted closet door is another common feature in hotels and resorts here that try to lean into the cultural heritage theme because this is also the kind of shutters we normally use for windows to allow airflow without necessarily compromising on privacy. Here, we call it a jalousie. However, its origins actually come from 18th century France, where it is similarly called jalousie or Louvre windows in English, which was then brought into Indonesian architecture through Dutch colonization. And then the second, and in my opinion most damning clue was, of course, the orchids. Orchids, specifically moon orchids, are one of Indonesia's 3 national flowers, and you'll find them a lot in resorts and hotels specifically catered to international guests to wow them with its charm. And that's why the orchid is also referred to as the Puspapsona, which directly translates to flower of charm. And we usually reserve them for upscale hotels and such because they're pretty difficult to care for and expensive even by our standards to acquire. So according to the context of the game and how a lot of foreigners will be coming in to experience Indonesian and broader Southeast Asian culture through this lens, it's incredibly fitting that they'd put an orchid in that vase. But another plant in the shot that grabs my attention here is this leafy plant in the foreground. You see, my friends, that plant is unmistakably a Dipsis lutescens, aka a yellow palm plant. You can identify it by its distinct leaf arrangement, which you can see more clearly cast onto the shadows, and the slight yellowish tint to the ends of it, making it distinct from, say, a red palm plant. And if you're wondering how I'm able to easily identify this, it's because this plant is an extremely common feature in most people's houses in Indonesia, as either an indoor potted plant or an outdoor plant that grows pretty big in the garden. It is so common that I can identify it by a snippet and shadow cast alone. And we do later get better shots of this palm tree here where we see a distinct lack of redness at its base, which would classify it as a red palm. And while it could also be a bamboo palm due to the lack of distinct yellow coloration as well, I'm still leaning more towards it being a yellow palm due to the arrangement of the leaves themselves. And naturally, international level resorts here also use a lot of these yellow palms as a way to make international guests feel that tropical getaway vibe. So again, fitting. This is the reception. This is your welcome as a foreigner into our country. But at this point, what you're getting is the carefully curated, sanitized version meant to make a good impression. Now, just be sure to keep that in mind as we move into Number 2, the resort itself. We, the audience, open the door right up to the sea at our doorstep. Fun, right? That's because we're staying not just at a seaside resort, but an actual floating resort that sits on the waves themselves. And this is one area where I think the region takes sole inspiration from Indonesia because I believe this seaside area here is specifically inspired by Raja Ampat. Raja Ampat is one of Indonesia's biggest ecotourism destinations with over 75% of the world's coral species being found here, which we see in the diving segments shown in the preview as well. And I do think this is a very clever way of expanding their diving feature, especially with such a draw such as the coral reefs of Raja Ampat. Raja Ampat is located in southwest Papua in real life, and since the island of Papua itself is also included exactly in the Wiwa map, this pretty much confirms it. I also want to point out this snowy region that is on the Papua island, which makes perfect sense to me because it gives Pokemon their beloved snow biome that is a staple in pretty much every region, but it's also super fitting that it's in Papua because on the island itself, we have a mountain called Jayawijaya, which is known to have eternal snow on its summit year-round. So I gotta give the Pokemon devs some props for doing their research. Raja Ampat, being a diving and snorkeling destination, is also known for its floating villas, which allow guests immediate access to the sea. But another fun fact you might not know unless you are Indonesian is that the specific design for these floating villas are clearly inspired by the Honai houses, which are traditional housing of the Papuan people. Because we learned this in elementary school, where we have to memorize the specific traditional clothing, instruments, food, weapons, and houses across all 38 provinces. Man, when I was in elementary school, we only had 33. Elementary school kids these days have it tough, huh? And this is slightly off topic, but also very important. But I want to talk about the fact that even though Raja Ampat is so important to the world's ecosystem and a popular ecotourism destination for Indonesia, our evil government is currently and actively clearing out these beautiful islands to build nickel mines, which will pollute the water and destroy the ecosystem. And our country is a literal dictatorship now, so there's nothing we can even do about it unless you want to disappear off the face of the planet. Because we did try. You might have heard of the extremely loud and violent protests that broke out in the streets for several weeks. And guess what? Nothing changed. Though some people did disappear, and that's not even an exaggeration, because that's something our president has been known to do before, actually. In fact, that was his entire job before he became a president. I am not kidding you. This man has committed war crimes and is a recognized war criminal. And that's not even speaking about the atrocities he is currently committing against the Papuan people. So, if an Indonesian tells you that they hate being Indonesian, it's not because we hate our culture or our land and heritage. It's because our government is genuinely evil and we are long overdue for a reformation. But anyway, Pokemon? Number 3. The starters. As is customary with the release of a new region, we also get new Pokemon starters, and I actually genuinely really like all 3 options. For Gen 10, we have Brout as the grass starter, Pombon as the fire starter, and Gekwa for the water starter. As is also customary, people are nitpicking the designs because nothing will ever compare to, I guess, the epitome of monster design that is Gen 1. I've actually seen people call the designs for the Gen 10 starters too simple and in the same breath praise the complexity of Charmander's design. To me personally, all 3 starters look super cute because they really appeal to my design preferences. I love a cute dumb dog, I love a gecko with fabulous eyelashes, and I love ugly spherical birds. So, with the assumed knowledge that the starters will likely be based on Southeast Asian fauna, let's break down the design decisions and what the inspiration here may be. Starting with Gekwa, which is the starter I'm planning on choosing for my first playthrough, I'm pretty sure it's just meant to be a gecko, which are abundant here in Southeast Asia. In fact, I have a gecko hiding in my wall somewhere right now, and I hear it periodically. I'm pretty sure we were all told the same story growing up that if a gecko bites you, specifically on the ear, it won't let go until it gets startled by a thunderclap. So don't go near one, and that's how I grew up kind of afraid of geckos. I love the water drop theming throughout its design, from the eyelashes to the little marking, even down to the tail. It just looks so serene and graceful and cute, but what particularly caught my interest was the shape of the head. Maybe it's just me, but it kind of reminds me of the shape of the mask we use in a traditional dance called tari topeng, which literally means mask dance, and it opens up the possibility that Gekwa might evolve into a dancer-inspired Pokemon if it were to be bipedal. However, more realistically, I also believe that the developers wouldn't waste the opportunity to include the Komodo dragon into its Pokédex, and I fully believe that this might be where the Gekwa line is headed, especially since the droplet shapes it already has can easily translate to the drool venom Komodo dragons produce. Not to mention the fact that Komodo dragons are also extremely strong swimmers, so it would make sense as a possible water poison dual type, especially since diving seems to be a big component for Gen 10. As for Pombon, it's pretty obvious that he's meant to be a palm bonfire. It's in the name, but I think as it evolves into its second stage, it's probably going to take on a more wolfish appearance inspired by dholes. Dholes, or Asiatic wild dogs, are native to Southeast Asia and some parts of India and pretty much have the same fiery colored coat that Pombon already has. As is often the modus operandi with Pokemon, every cute, lovable quadrupedal starter often stays quadrupedal until the third stage, which is when the heartbreak sets in. I, like everybody else, is desperate for Pombon to stay quadrupedal, and with this in mind, I'm really hoping his final evolution could be inspired by Barong, which is a guardian spirit from Balinese mythology that is the king of spirits and goodness. Essentially, he is the goodest boy who protects humans from the forces of Rangda, the demon queen. Their eternal struggle is depicted through the Barong dance, which is a similar concept to the Chinese lion dance in terms of the costuming. And this Barong costume, I think, already bears striking resemblances to Pombon in terms of a big fluffy mane and long fur, but with bigger teeth and an elegant crown, and I would just be so thrilled if our culture could be represented this way, as opposed to, say, my mortal enemy, Aquafina Dragon. Or worse, Incineroar! Please, Nintendo, I don't want to have Buff Doge on my team! And last but not least, of course, we have Brout. So, people have all made fun of his eyebrows, but just drawing him for this segment, I realized that his face is actually just a little coconut sprout. The eyebrows are the two leaves, and his beak is the coconut itself. And I know this because I am Indonesian and we like the coconut sprout imagery a lot here. It's actually super clever and I personally really like it though. His design overall, I believe, is also supposed to be coconut based. I can't help but think of the green ones we usually hack open and stick a straw into. But the moment I saw Brout and that little tuft of feathers on his head, my immediate thought was, oh, this is going to be a Javanese hawk eagle. See, the Javanese hawk eagle is the national bird of Indonesia and actually serves as the inspiration for our national emblem, the Garuda Pancasila. Maybe I'm hyper-focusing on the head tuft here, but it would be so nice if at least 2 of the 3 starters could represent Indonesia's 3 national animals. It would have been such a perfect fit because the Komodo dragon is our Satwa Darat, or land animal. The Javanese eagle is our Satwa Langka, or rare animal. And the Arwana Merah, or the red arowana, is our Satwa Pesona, or charm animal, similar to the flowers, and how they have their own categories as well. And right here, we would already have our grass ground, fire flying, and water fairy starters. But, you know, beggars can't be choosers, and I'm pretty happy with what we got already. Number 4, the Special Pikachu. In this beginning segment itself, we get introduced to 2 Special Pikachu variants, Mr. Windy Chew and Miss Wavy Chew. Right off the bat, they reminded me of Alolan Raichu with their fur coloration, making it look like they have tan from being out in the sun all day. I've seen some speculation on Twitter saying that they were probably a reference to white tourists in Bali based on the way that they're dressed, because upon first glance, it does look reminiscent to the Hawaiian shirt-wearing tourists you'd see in Hawaii. Except Mr. Windy Chu isn't wearing a generic Hawaiian shirt. He's actually wearing a Pokemon World equivalent of batik. It's probably specifically inspired by batik kawung, which originates from Yogyakarta, while Miss Wavy Chu is wearing a motif that might be inspired by a different kind of batik called batik ngchim, which is well known for its nature-inspired patterns involving flowers and sometimes birds, and is also usually exclusively worn by women. And usually, tourists coming to Indonesia don't wear batik like they wear Hawaiian shirts in Hawaii, because batik is considered formal wear, and it's kind of the equivalent of walking around in business formal. So you'd only really wear batik if you're attending a meeting or a wedding, or if you're receiving important guests. And that's why, my friends, I am of the belief that Mr. Windy Chu and Miss Wavy Chu here aren't just Pikachus on vacation in the Wiwa region. I believe they are Indonesian Pikachus. And not just any Indonesian Pikachu, but Indonesian Pikachu tour guides, which is pretty obvious considering the fact that they literally greet us like tour guides a minute into the preview. Number 5. The buildings. Aside from the vastly improved water and light graphics, which we don't know if it will actually be that good in the final game yet, I just want to say, I don't like this structure. I don't. Remember when I was just complaining about Raja Ampat being turned into nickel mines? Well, this structure, which I'm assuming is probably a lab or a super fancy resort, looks too much like a massive drill for me to be comfortable. And the worst part is, the resort is right there. This feels a lot like gentrification, like what is happening in Bali right now, where a lot of tourists are illegally settling there and pushing out the local people. And yes, sure, in theory, if you have no ties to the culture and perceive this as empty land that is just open for development, it's probably a spectacle, you know, something that you could look at and be like, this is a monument to the greatness of humanity. But to me, as an Indonesian, this building is jarringly out of place. It's like a foreign entity that came and built on pristine ground, probably brushing aside the destruction it required for its existence in the process. This structure doesn't call to any Southeast Asian architectural sensibility. Like at most, maybe it's supposed to be a reference to the Hindu temples in Bali, like the Pura Ulundanu. It's too tall, too sleek, too streamlined, and ultimately, it stands completely against the nature around it instead of blending harmoniously. Southeast Asian architecture doesn't build up, it builds out. Wide space, flat to the ground, not skyward. In fact, there are even rules in certain provinces in Indonesia where you're specifically not allowed to build tall buildings, like in Bali and Yogyakarta, and that's why there aren't any high-rises in either province. So no, I don't like this building. It looks invasive, like a water park built at the expense of the natural beauty around it. I really genuinely hope that this ends up being the HQ of the villains that we once believed were our allies before we discover their ugly truth. However, this building here feels right. Do you see the carvings on the Pokemart/Pokemon Center? That is Southeast Asian architecture. And to me specifically, this reminds me a lot of warung, which are these little shacks or street-side shops that pop up in neighborhoods and are usually attached to someone's house, where you can get small convenience items like snacks, drinks, or even groceries and meals. But the size and the intricacy of the wooden carvings remind me of saung, which are these woven structures that is intended as a place to rest, which is fitting for a Pokemon Center and a Pokemart. Southeast Asia, and Indonesia specifically, is all about those intricate patterns, and it's one of the things I complained about Raya and the Last Dragon completely missing. But I'm glad Pokemon at least is doing a bit better. But you know what really made me feel like this is an authentic depiction of Indonesia? This right here. This fuck-ass tarpaulin printing. It's ugly, it gives graphic design is my passion, and it's everywhere. If you know, you know, but this is a quintessential Indonesian infrastructure, and that's how I know that at least the Pokemon team that was sent here for research didn't just hang around the curated foreigner-safe destinations. They got their boots dirty. Heck, they might have even had actual Indonesian developers on the team, which would have been even better. See, Indonesia has a very specific aesthetic, and a lot of foreigners seem to miss this, but it is tropical paradise, spice of life, and poverty. And a lot of foreign-made media based in or around Indonesia often miss one of those three things. But the key for an authentic Indonesian portrayal is to have all three. You can't just have the tropical paradise and spice of life without the poverty. And similarly, it isn't really Indonesia without the tropical paradise and spice of life. And that's why this shot, this one single shot, not of the Duskulls in the foreground, but that dingy little house in the background, was what got Indonesian netizens in Twitter the most excited about this game. Because this is what life for Indonesians look like. Not this fancy, beautiful resort and luxury. This. The cheap architecture, the ventilation slats around the doors and windows because you don't have air conditioning, the exposed wiring, the poverty green paint, I kid you not, that is an actual shade of paint we have, and of course, that fuck-ass tarpaulin print!
Britt needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
Oh, and of course, the clothes being hung literally outside on the second floor. That's an important detail here. And it's located in a dark, underdeveloped area surrounded by a spooky forest that's full of ghost types. They've done it, you guys. It's a wrap. They've done it. Even if everything else flops, we at least get this image of Indonesian Pokemon region. and that's the representation we've been waiting for. Remember how I said earlier that the opening sequence at the resort is your welcome as a foreigner into the country? The carefully curated, sanitized version meant to make a good impression? Well, I'm hoping, and it does look like the further you explore into the region, the more those curated optics fall away. And that makes me really, really hopeful that this isn't just another disingenuous appeal to representation. Number 6. The landscape. Okay, we've gone over the man-made structures, but now let's talk about nature. Obviously, the big sweeping shots of the jungle and sea are pretty generic at first, with coconut trees and some ferns, but the further we go into the forest, that's when you start seeing some diversity in plant life. From this shot, you can see the yellow palms I mentioned before in the beginning. Aside from that, you also get rice terraces, which is not only a biome we haven't seen before in a Pokemon game, but because it's also an iconic agricultural method known most famously in the island province of Bali, though it's also used in the Philippines and China. And speaking of new biomes, we also get this super interesting mangrove biome that I don't think has ever been done anywhere. See, Indonesia has the largest mangrove ecosystem in the world, so the fact that they included this not only tells me that they really did their research, but they're also using that research to expand their world meaningfully. Because it opens up opportunities for new mechanics and world building that makes the world feel more rich and alive. Because a mangrove forest would be the perfect habitat for water-ground Pokemon like Quagsire, Swampert, and maybe even more Pokemon of a similar kind. The rich coral reefs allow them to re-implement and expand what diving could be as a mechanic and showcase seawater Pokemon in their natural habitat. Sometimes it's good to explore something completely new without having to tie it back too much to what is comfortable and familiar, because at this point, we are seeing the same settings and lore be told over and over again because media is so saturated that it has become a cross-referential mess that relies too heavily on pre-established media the writers hope the audience are familiar enough with in order to carry their series instead of doing something completely new. If there is anything new to be done at this point, but then again, we are only seeing stories from a single monolithic culture at the moment. It would be fun to see stories from other cultures and perspectives too. And while we're on the topic of something completely new, Number 7. Things I want to see in this game. Let's get the obvious out of the way. Yes, I want to see new Pokemon and/or regional forms inspired by local flora and fauna, and of course more mega forms, but I'd also love it if they could dip into Indonesian folklore and do something with that. Indonesia has such a rich culture of mysticism and spiritual beliefs, and that's partly why we constantly release new horror movies every other week, aside from it being cheap and trashy and easy to produce. It'd be really cool to see Pokemon do a take on Indonesian ghosts because there's such huge potential for new ghost types. You know what? I'm really hoping we might even get a ghost evolution out of this, but I won't be too mad if we don't either. Another thing I hope this game includes, or rather brings back, are Pokemon contests. Now, Indonesia and most of Southeast Asia really is all about dance and music. Like I mentioned before, we literally have different musical instruments and clothing for every province, and the reason for that is because every province also has its own traditional dance and songs. Performance art is very important to us. It's how we keep our history and connection to each other alive, and we regularly throw competitions for traditional dance as well to take pride in this. In fact, these traditional performances are part of Indonesia's initiative to promote Indonesian culture abroad. I know the Pokemon Company has attempted something similar in Sun and Moon already with Z moves, but instead of a battle gimmick, it should just be a Pokemon contest again. Every region could favor a specific Pokemon type like water or fire, and moves that could be recategorized like they did in Diamond Pearl Platinum with cool, cute, beauty, and tough. You can collect accessories, learn different music sheets for performances, and obviously, dress up. Maybe do what the anime did and also have a league for Pokemon contests where, alongside gyms, you also have to win a Pokemon contest before you can proceed to the next city to prove that you have fully understood the culture. Another thing I'd like to see is cuisine, of course. Food is such an important aspect in Southeast Asia in sea culture as well. Food is such an important aspect in sea culture as well. That's how we connect and how we build roots with each other, and how we build bonds with each other. So I really hope we get the cooking mechanic from Sword and Shield back. I didn't really like the direction they took Scarlet and Violet when it came to cooking because it was just... Guys, it was laughably bad and objectively inferior to the curries in Swish. If they expanded upon it in Wiwa, I'd like to be able to forage for ingredients instead of just buying them from merchants. I'd also like it if we could do different traditional recipes that could boost different stats. Heck, I think it would be fun if they could even replace potions and heals. Like maybe instead of spraying a potion mid-battle, you toss your Pokemon some Cimol Bojot A and it gets a 50 plus HP recovery and increased attack. If multiplayer is still on the table, I'd also still like to be able to do picnics with friends and just let our Pokemon wander around. And that way maybe you can contribute recipes or ingredients to the cookout, like a potluck. Oh, and since Pokemon is moving towards an open world concept now, I think it would be so funny if we have Ojol for the fast travel system in Wiwa. Now, if you don't know what Ojol is, and there's a very good possibility you don't because most of my audience is apparently American, it's an abbreviation for Ojek Online, which means online motorcycle taxi, which is basically our equivalent of Uber, but instead of cars, it's motorcycles, which is often a lot more convenient here. Though technically you can also get cars, and yes, they also do meal delivery and grocery shopping. It's a pretty minor detail just for fast travel, but I think it'd be a fun addition just for immersion, you know? You take out your Pokédex to fast travel, and then some guy on a motorcycle shows up, then it cuts to the loading screen of him driving you to your destination. I think that would really help with immersion. Do I want a specific battle gimmick for Weewa? I mean, I guess. I think I'd honestly prefer they go back to focusing on Mega Evolutions, just because it's not even complete yet. Not every Pokemon has a Mega Evolution yet. And because that was the coolest new gen edition Pokemon did after leaving the Pixel style behind. And nothing has ever even come close to that. I think I saw somewhere that Weewa might be focusing more on weather effects given the theme, but I'm genuinely kind of burnt out from the region-specific battle gimmick at this point. So maybe I'll just talk about gym leaders and Pokemon League concepts I'd like to see instead. And this is my lightning round. A fighting type gym leader who is a Pencaksilat master. He may or may not be based on Iko Uwais, bonus points if yes. A fairy type gym leader that is based on any one of the traditional dances from the Indonesian archipelago. Could be Jaipong, could be Legong, just anything. A psychic type gym leader based on Indonesian witch doctors and shamans. Maybe Mama Loren specifically, or even Risa Saraswati, take your pick. A ghost type gym leader whose whole thing is that they're possessed and are constantly tweaking out as the ghost type possessing them takes over. Oh, maybe the gym leader is just an average guy, and the ghost that's possessing them is the actual gym leader, but otherwise he's just a confused guy who doesn't remember how or why he became a gym leader. A water-type gym leader who is based on Bajo divers. The Bajo tribe are known to be able to hold their breaths for up to 13 minutes and dive down to 50 to 70 meters beneath the sea in order to catch sea produce. They also have a genetic mutation that gives them a spleen that is 50% larger than other humans due to this adaptation. A grass-type gym leader who is based on Pramuka Scouts, which is a government-run wilderness survival training program meant to build resilience and resourcefulness in younger generations. It's basically just Boy Scouts. And on that note as well, I think the Ranger class Pokemon should just be replaced with Pramuka. I'd also like to see a Dragon-type gym leader or Elite Four, possibly Champion, who is a descendant of the king of the Pokemon world's version of the ancient Majapahit kingdom, which used to rule over the entire Malay, Filipino, and Indonesian archipelago. Everything else is fair game, but these are things I would like to see specifically. But it would be very immersive if after you win every battle, the gym leaders treat you to a meal. I think that would be super cute and very true to Indonesian culture. Oh, and for every major encounter with an important plot character to deliver an important plot point, they take you to a coffee shop or street side food vendor. And then you sit like this. I cannot emphasize how important coffee shop culture is in Indonesia because we don't go to bars. So every meetup always ends or begins at a coffee shop, if not both. Another thing I'm hoping makes a comeback in Weewa is mean rivals. I don't want a good-natured, friendly, goofy kid as my rival, okay? I don't want a pathetic, wet cat. I want someone who is rude and will hurt my feelings and piss me off enough to want to fight them. Not in a Pokemon battle, just straight up. And I know what you're thinking. Indonesians and Southeast Asians in general are always super friendly and warm. That would be out of place. No. You have clearly never been in a true friendship with a Southeast Asian because if they truly believe you are their friend, they will insult you. They will call you monkey and dog and the ugliest creature to walk this planet. Their love language is physical and verbal attack, and if anyone else does that to you, it's on sight because only they get to do that to you, okay? Okay. You see, the combination of humidity, a corrupt government, and hundreds of years of colonization makes a population funny. And speaking of evil, corrupt governments, I think the villain team should be the government. I think we should get to fight the government. Okay, that's it. Once again, let me know if I missed anything or if you have any more thoughts or aspirations for what you'd like to see in Pokemon Winds and Waves. That's all from me. If you made it this far, thanks for hanging out in my channel for a while. I hope your skin didn't get too pruny. Big shout out to my lovely sea bunnies on Patreon. If you want to become a sea bunny and get extra perks like a free commission from me, join my Patreon. If you want to see more from me, then please follow me on all my social media. If you want to submit fan art or chat with me, join my Discord server. And if you want more of my stories, check out my Wild Words series here on YouTube because that will make me really happy. All the links are in my description and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye!